wo da steht sich nicht auf Chilik Remes, nicht auf Chilik Drush, nicht auf Chilik Seid, Afal Pi, was sie seine der Halle in Teras Emme Chilik und even Halimut von Teras Emmes, sieht man sich in der Ruf Gufe der Hadgosche, als in der Rufe dort der Yisrael, als Davke Ingen von Pschute schol Mikro, Kongo nicht sein, als soll sein ein Mikro, jetzt mit der Pschute. Man schenken in der andere Unionen, was wir lernen, Top von Apostel, konnte sein, dass sie in einem Leben, was jetzt von dem Mikro, dass es bleibt an Emes selbstverständlich, dass sie sich achillig von Teras Emes, bis war nicht, als auf der Rufe sich hechet Chal der Psag dem Borr von Ramba, als der, was als Ainian Ikri in Amune und Amizisch von Aiden ist, als jeder Linien in Terische Bixav und jeder Linien in Terische Balpe, glebt bei Amuna Pschuta, ados Ainian, was nicht le Meshe Mina Shomayim, Ainian Mina Shomayim, aber in Druf ist doch Chilukim, und es kann sein Chilukim sein, doch Chilukim, und die Unionen, was stehen in dem Mikro, und die Unionen, was einen mehr nicht wie ein Remes in Mikro, leke Mide, der Leile Mise, bei Reiso, Afal Pi, was Lechiere, das Ainen Halimut, Al-Nilmat, von dem Mikro in der Nähe von Remes oder Drush oder Seid. Es kann sein, dass die Maskone soll sein, dass sie jetzt in der Mikro. Und sie bleibt mehr nicht an die Miese-Bereich so, man schenken ab Pschutischel Mikro, ist auch Teras Emes und in Klolle hat Tero, als ein Mikro jetzt mit der Pschute. Wo das geht sich Areis, Pirush, Rashi, al Tero, Anili, Bossi, Lefarish, Pschutischel Mikro, Deutsch, Rashi, auch Bekerev, Horetz, in der Hasedr, in Pashas Shavua Zeh, Miloeiro, als Chocha der Rebischter so, als Afal Pi, was gefindt sich Bishomayim, ist Gzeirossi, ist Betachteni. Der Rashi ist meitig die zwei Wörter Bekerev Hores und bringt ein ganz Ariches Baser. Lecheret Rashi gedacht so, Gzeirossi, Bekerev Hores, a Gzeirossi Betachteni. Ist Rashi Eiche dazu Magdi, als der Rebischter ist in der Luft Madgisch und das ist Pschutisch al Mikro. Aber der Teller, was Bekerev Hores ist, und das ist verbunden damit, wie der Rebischter gefindt sich Bishomai. Wo der Fuhne sich verstandig, als er sehe wie Bekerev Hores, wo doi der Robzleich Gzeirossi Betachteni, ist das nicht nur Stammtachteni, nur Bekerev Hores, wie im Pschutisch al Mikro, wo dort darf Garashi nicht abteichen, als Bekerev Hores geht auf Mitzrayim. Was Mitzrayim, mit Pschutisch al Mikro, ist nicht gewähnt, als Amin Mokke, Mekulko, wo Ores, wie sie gewähnt in Mitzrayim, wie Rashi bringt Arop in Pschutisch al Mikro, in Sefer Vayikri, nachher in Gdeshi. Wo der Pfarrer der hat Gosha, Kemeise, ist Mitzrayim, soll nicht dort. Ist dort der Obter Betachtenin, was Pschutisch al Mikro, bis wann der Rashi teich, darf das gar nicht mehr fehlig sein. Nehmt mit Tachtenim in der Nähe von Mitzrayim, wo das der Mekulko, und beloschen Akosov Erwas Horetz, und dort nicht dort der Inja von Gzeirossi. Wo der Inja von Gzeirossi ist, durch ein Sehnle Schuss lehare Rachere, dass nicht ein Inja, was ein Melech geht ein Reis mit der Hasbore. Und wie lange soll sich mit dem voneinander fragen und wissen und mit Dagdig sein und mit Daten ein sein für Chulu, nur dass nach Hatschila ein Reis gegeben geworden in der Nähe von Gzeirossi. Wo der Pfarrer da Rashi gleich Echet Magdi, das ist verbunden, Apel, Pi, was bei Shomayim, wo der Funde sich jetzt verstandig, dass Admin HaKotze, El HaKotze, in Shomayim Gufe, ist da Kame, Bekame, Dargis, in Pshute Shlonikle, werden sie alle Nichlal, in dem Wort und dem Minion von Shomayim, aber die Kavone, was ist, die höchste Sache, was sie kann sein. Und Hascholas Achumish, Brechis Bora Lekim, es Shomayim, es Ort. Wo das ist verbunden mit den Minien, wo der alte Rebbe mit Baal HaIlule, mit Weir bekam mit Kemes, als Geweh, Berkon, Ufton, Mato, Bejeser, in das Davko, der was Geweh, Bejeser. Das nehmen von dem höchsten Ort, was sie da. Was ist der Linie von Amole, Asher Omelbeck, Metzkolje, Mechaia, von dem alten Reben, ist das verstandig. Das Lechele Reish, Nefesh, Asheros. Sagt dort die Teile seine, die Sefer Atanien, Shulchan Aruch, und mein Morchsidis, bis in der Nähe von Aruch, meine Eretz, Rechowo, von der Rechowo, meine Jom. Das kommt aber nicht, bedürfnis, wie mir gefühlt, was Tzadikim dem im Lebeira. Und der Cheker bei Medrisch, in Rabu, und Elio Rabu. Als da was Kodmer Leilam, ist da nach Teira und Israel, und sie da lag Schakle Vitarie, mi Kodem le mi, wo der Fung Gufe verstandig, als sie haben sich gewaltige Meiles Apalpi, was da schiebert war im Kodmer Leilam. Ist auch die zwei seinen ausgeteilt von der Schivo, und danach ist in der Ruf der Maskone, als Machschafton shall Israel die Kodma viele zu Teire. Und der Reihe abdruf von Teire Asmo, was sie sagt auf jeder Linien, Daber Bnei Israel und Amer Bnei Israel, wer sagte Medrisch. Wo der Fune verstandig in Avedes HaTzadikim, was dem im Leberom, Asafal Piki Dur, der Pisgam von dem Rebnisch Masein, als geht in den Himmel und ich so ihm los ich heich, und mit Duber kam upon ihm der Keshische Base, als in die Ksovi, ist auch noch Nafshi Ksovi Sihovis, wie Dugme, wie sie steht auf Teira, wenn er geht zu dem Ebersten, wie die Gmorde sagt, in Shabbos, also Nechi, war das das Schole von Matten Teira. I dos a Roshetevis, a no nafshik sovis Jehovis, wo der Pirush apnimi bose is, als in dem Ksovis hat reingegeben Jehovis nafshi, sein Metzies, der Asmus und Ruhus, all der selber Tzadikim denim Lebeira, und befragt wie der alte Rebbe meweir in Sefer Atanje Rish Perike Hei, was es ist a Yichud Niflo, zwischen dem Maskil und dem Seichel, wo in welchem liegt und kocht sich, als wird dort ein Neffen, was ein Dugmosse nimmt sich klar zu Asami Yichud, kommt das aber nicht. Wie das ist, wenn geht zu Bnei Israel, bekeschert zum Nebersten, davon ist verstandig, wenn geht zu jeder Baltere, was lernt Tere, ki de Boye, Lachas kamen zu Anossi Bedeire, an die Schome Klolis von dem ganzen Deir, als Nesaf ab dem Yichud Nifla, was sie da bei mit sein Teile, was bis wann das Arav gekommen, Jorda Venoso, in Sefer Atanje und in Sefer Ashulchan Aruch Shalei, onhebendig von Hilchestal mit Teile, wo das gewähnt von der erste, in Simone mit Shulchan Aruch, Haloch ist in Shulchan Aruch, wo der alte Rebbe hat auch gedruckt, i der Iker Amole Asher Omelbei, i das die Iden a Nefesh Asheros. Und bischaß mir sagt, dass kommt auf Dalle Tevis, is a demol te kol amol asheromol be kol meshech yemei chaya. Bakumt an ali niflo noch mehr wie viele wie Pharaon auf Dalle Tevis. Und dann noch das Peil Yeshuis bekerev Horetz, ukir Yudua, der Psag Din und wie der alte Rebbe, wie Frate sind drauf Madgish, als Hamaise Hua Yiker, wer in Meir Bose, in Sefer Atanje bekam Mekemis, bis in Igeres Akedesh Lehi vechayeu chadi vegarneu chad, was auf Duf schreibt sich der Tzemach Tzedek, gewähne Male Mekemi, und die Feres keinen Bnei Boni, als hat das geschrieben in Piena, Jonim lefnei Istalkusei, das ist verbunden mit der Istalkus, mit der Ptire von dem alten Reben, der Chashivus und den Ilui, bis in der Neven von einer Reich, darf von den Minyan Hoasiya. Und was für ein Neven Minyan Hoasiya, da soll Ufton bekehren worden. Wo der Funde verstandig, aber ich habe es mit Kleib sich zusammen, und man nimmt von Zman, was sich nicht dort Details zu sagen, was ist auch da, was er weder, was ich öfter lahachziro, das darin von Zman. Aber mir verliert etwas an ihnen, das ist das Echet, eine gewaltige Sache, und das ist auch nichts Gedusche, was er verbunden mit ihm. Und mit Amol wird das verloren von ihm, und konnte mit gonischen Tufter. ובלושן המשנה והגמורה והפוסקים התירו חוסה על ממנו של ישראל וכידוע דרבי פון בעל שם טוב ובנדר. אף על פי כן זוגט מן אז עיבוד aber das Domin von der Linie von Schove Kessel kommt das gar nicht zu dem Ibudsma. Und das ist eine Linie, was Eile Achzire, sie Jomim Jutzoru, Lei Echot behem, da schaffen geworden und gegeben geworden, jeder Rieden. Jomim, in einem Neffen, als ließ nicht Teuber sehen, nicht kein Chosser, nicht kein Yatir, und Afal Pikein, als kommt a Jems Gula, Bedugme von Chavdale Teves, nimmt man und mit tut das Alpi Heiros, Teras Emes und Teras Chaye. Und mit geht op a Meshach Zman, auf his Bonenus, in a dos is a Yem Ahilulo von dem und dem, bi Inyoneine von dem alten Reben, Balatani beschulchen Noruch, und wie allein hat angewiesen in die Nekudes Ikris, auf Misbeine sich in der Ruf, was verbunden mit der Yem Ahilulo, ist auch Koomor in die Igeres Akedesh, sich Misbeine sein, bei Negeh, was tut sich auf mit Amole Asheromolbe. Und in der Neffen hat das Peil noch Jeschuis bekehre worden. Wo der Funde verstandig, der Hero Bruro, Niusa, das am meisten Huho Iker, als zum alle Menschen, es kommt a Reis die Maskone, da wo sie darf sein, wenn er gehle meiste Bepeil, auf Ufton Jeschuis bekehre Horetz, nicht schrecken sich, aber gefühlt sich bekehre Horetz, in dem Cheshech, Koffel und Chupel, von Nikwese dem Schiche, bis war nicht das die Darge Achitachtene in den Mokim, von Sukas David Hanefeles, wie der alte Rebbe bringt das Sechet Arop in eine von seinen Igris Kedisch, was Bnei Hagoyen am Mechaber das mit Zadev gewährt. Weil Jachre heißt Talkus für den alten Rebbe. Zu Sefer Hatanio und sie geworden der Chelik Leviische Bei und dies bekehre Wohret geht man in ein Neffen, wo das Gseirossi betachteni. Anit mir los sich herein in Cheshbenes von Seichel, a Zimis, Chaloshim, Zimis, Meyatim, Vekayetze Bazer. nur me geht mit keinem sein, der Schlichus von dem Baal HaHilule in a Fotzes Ayadus Bichlal und a Fotzes Amayonis Bimiuchot, wo das hat sich angeheben, L'yachri HaGiula Shalei, וכי ידוע דוגמה אז הזייס נסן שמנה כשקט שנסן wo der Fune der Verstandig hat der Zeiss, was wird sich angerufen als Shem Hashem Hashem Shebei. Sie ist Shemen, Kiloschen Akose. Wo das beweist, dass das ist sein Niker und sein Asmus im Hut. Es in der Ruf, die Hisbonnen ist, aber soll gehen in sein Schliches von Jafutze meine Sechachutze, wo das ist doch verbunden mit Hafotzes Hayadus Bichlal und Koomur in der Nähe von was ist das Geiser auf sich, Gzeiros Hibetachteni und nicht das Geiser Beiker auf dem Ingen, was Lechiere ist das Hakeach Achitachten Schwei, der Keach Asir und sie verbunden al Pirei mit dem Kirch, mit der Kirch, was sie verbunden mit Chelik Achitachten, שבגופי כפשוטי mit Halicha beregel. Als nicht nur heilig in der Schlichus, nur Kiloschen Amishne Hevei Rotzlied war Mitzvah und Beritze seine Jis in der Nähe von Simcha Vetuv Levo, wie der alte Rebbe Mevair Baruch Echet in Sefer Atanya und bringt darauf ki Yodu in der Ruf von Kislev Pirish Arizal, wenn als da sein der Ingen avadete Hawaii Kercha Besimcha Vetuv Levo, bedugmas Haloschen, wie sagt dort der Ombel Asher Ombel bei Meshech, kol Meshech Yemei Chayov, idose der erste Maskone, und wo sie berechtigt echt, was mir gibt, da sehr viel Mann bekam es, worin das wird aufgetan, schlebe erich, durch der Hatzloch in dem Zman shel Yachrise, in die Unione Mikre, im Seif und Limud Atere, Laatzme, Kima, Mitzvahs, Laatzme. Und Buiker in der Mamole, Asher Omelbe, was Koomur, wenn geht zu dem alten Reben, ist gewähnt sein Ikerinien, Avidosse. Und kemevui besiches Rabbeseini Nisiyeno, und befragt in sich ist Nisi der Reine von Reben dem Schwer, wo der alte Rebbe hat gesagt, dass aber sein Ingen ist, wenn geht, Kiloschen, Beloschen, Akose, Nefesh, Asherosse, Bechoron, soll sein der Schluche und hat in der Ruf den Keach und den Nesimas Keach, bis dem Keach, bis dem Schluche Shalodem Kemese. Aber da soll ufton und ufton in der Nähe von Peil, Yeshuis, Bekerev Hores, und das wird der Achono Krevo, die Bemevuir in der Geres Abal Shemte wa Hayudua, aber Schaas Mispeil Yeshuis Bekerev Hores, wo das ist doch bei der Reino, bei Ikwese dem Schiche, was Mitzvah Begale Seis Achochmo, und beim Juchad Leachre Petilburg, und beim Juchad Leachre Habiur wa Hapirush, wa Nesinas Keach von Nesi der Reino, a das ist der Wede von der Reino sehr, a verrotbringen der Gyula Amitis wa Schleim alle dem Meshiach Sketzit Keino, und beloschen der Rambam in der Neven von Nigolin Miyad, und der Jem HaHilule, Jem HaPtire, was hat geschrieben und bei Meile echt angepasst und das auf sich allein, aber das, bei Jem HaPtire wa HaHilule, wird dann noch Nimshach mit Mailo, bis in Lamata, Mata von Chesed Hawaii Meila, Madelam, bis in Peil Yeshuis Bekerev Hores, von der Yeshua Protis, was tut mit sich und tut mit den Jiden, was auf welcher Maschpier in den Joni von Afotzes Ayadus und Afotzes Atera. aber das rettet noch alt wegen a Giule und a Yeshua, von a Protein und von a Ribui Protein, aber alles als Protein bringt das. Und in a Nefen Kohomer von Nigolim Niyad und a Nefen von Mamosh, warum das wird so getan durch Chele Kelekami mal Mamosh, also kommen, als durch die Piulis, was legen sich alle zusammen, also sein der Keitsom la Golus, durch Dru, was Keitsom la Cheshech apnimi, und la Cheshech, was sie sich do bachutz, und sie werden Nigolin miyad as halte de Giule und de Giule amitis, war Schleimer, Biesen Schleimus mit dem zweiten Pirush Baser. Als nicht nur se fällt kein Sach nicht, nur Atem Mechuyev la Oshre, se le Schleimus, shei Schleimus le Mailo Himeno, u bikore Mamosh, u binoreinu, u biskeneinu, u beboneinu, u bidneseinu.
And here we are. And yeah. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. I heard. That's so, but you know that he also has it recorded, right?
I'm going to watch it today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay.
The divine DP frequency. I
Yes.
got cancellations.
You what's that? Oh wow! Look at that.
So I came.
And look at this. You know where Caroline has been telling me we got to do this. We got to do it from the house. And the truth is, she's absolutely right. I'm glad we're here because you know when we look at something like this, and those who are joining us also, we get to be so present with Hashem's wonders.
Yeah.
And you know that's what we need all the time. We need to be able to be present to it. The good news is I can move this way too.
And I'm looking at this. This is a moonstone or is it
Moonstone.
Okay, because I thought it might have been a fresh cut diamond, but that's a moonstone.
Thank you.
I like.
So I got the bottle from the
Yeah.
Oh wow, nice. Can I show that to? Let me see it for a moment. There we go. Take a look. You see? We know what it says over there.
When the Baal Shem Tov, wait, it is when you see the Baal Shem Tov says that when the Baal Shem Tov says you see water, it is a blessing.
Close. It says that he says that the Baal Shem Tov says here, right here, said the Baal Shem Tov, when encountering water, one should say that the Baal Shem says, not the Baal Shem Tov.
The Baal Shem.
Baal Shem means the master of the name. So it is not necessarily referring specifically to the Baal Shem Tov. In fact, it's a.
Everybody wants fizzy water. No need diet.
In fact, it's an idea that's very deep that we talked about, but it associated with like a kind of like a mystery. It's
This is
it's
for
the fact that
water
it's
off the
sorry,
top.
I got to get used to this.
Okay, so I'm gonna get the food laid out.
Did you need help?
I think I'm just, you know.
Are you sure?
what I want to do?
I'm very good at helping.
No, it's all good. I've got all the paper plates and everything for us.
Caroline, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, darling.
Why don't you sit for the rabbi's lesson and we can all learn and then we can all help you afterwards?
I thought maybe you might want to like lunch and eat at the same time. It's up to you guys. If you want to have something now.
I'm okay waiting. Are you okay waiting?
Yeah, and this is.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm also okay waiting.
This is South Africa.
Yes.
Okay.
But I just want to give Rabbi the respect of, because he's offering a lesson right now. And
I think I appreciate that. Yeah, and
So,
no, and yeah, I appreciate that, and I know that
people are
that Caroline is really being a great hostess,
she is.
and I meant to be here earlier.
Would you like
Thank
some
you.
water?
Yeah, we'll leave afterwards, if that's all right.
Well,
I-
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
I
okay?
don't have to be there
Caroline, we
until
can,
3:30.
Here,
There you go.
going to add some cream cheese.
would you like some water? Lisa?
Yes,
Can I
I'd
pour
love
some
to.
for you?
Yeah, please. Right there. And then I'm gonna get a nibble before we begin, and then I am ready to learn.
Yeah, so we're in this beautiful home right above the Pacific Ocean, which, by the way, you look outside over there, see this nice thing over here, it zooms in. I don't know if it'll zoom. But anyway, you get to see the Malibu Pier. So we're really right above the area. And looking forward to sharing with the teachings of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. We're getting close to the time of the new year for the esoteric teachings of the Torah, and because of that, there are different, as we've talked about many times in the past, there are different ways that we're meant to be present at any given time. We're not present the same way in the morning as we are in the afternoon. We're not present the same way in the afternoon as we are in the evening. And that's why sometimes it's good for a person to know this for many reasons. And one of the reasons why it's good for a person to know this is because it really goes along with something that I've heard from, I don't remember who told it to me, but it's one of my favorites. I know I've shared it many times in the past. I'm sure you heard it from me. Is that the key to happiness is managing your expectations. And it's really an amazing truth, because I think as a student of the esoteric teachings of Torah, it takes it even a deeper level. What is that? Because once you have an inside understanding of how things operate from a deeper perspective, then naturally your expectations change. So, for example, there are, in our times, people have become so sensitive from hearing things that they don't want to hear, that it's easy for people to put themselves into enclaves, into cocoons, where they only read from those who they want to hear from, and they only encounter. It's just it's much people in a certain way. There's a certain level of isolation that has taken place since COVID has begun, which I don't know that it's that apparent. I'm not being negative, by the way. I'm just stating factually. Having said that, so much has to do with people not wanting to hear or having certain experiences. Naturally, when you think about it, it would be similar to a person not wanting to experience pain. So they'll take medications so they don't experience pain. But pain is something very important for us, because it identifies for us something that needs attention. So if we don't have pain, then we don't attention is needed in that particular area. So anyway, having
Can I get the link?
yes. Let me do that. Okay. Yeah.
She was in Hollywood, she couldn't make it. So I know Rabbi, because in terms of pain, it's both physical and emotional.
Everything.
And spiritual.
It's at every level, and you take it to the divine providence, right? That we talk about all the time. So naturally, if I hear something that I'm very uncomfortable in listening to, if I'm going to take it from the perspective of the everything that we learned through the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I'm going to do is get upset at the person who just presented me with that scenario. Because as wrong as that person may have been to do whatever it is at that moment, unless we're talking about something that deserves an immediate response, which is not the case in most situations. So if someone's triggering me, if I'm going to take it from the perspective of the Baal Shem Tov, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause, and I'm going to put it through a different management system, and then my expectations naturally will change. I'm not going to say, why did the person do blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say, why did I have to hear A, B, and C? And why did I have to hear it again and again and again? And why did I have to hear it again, even after I thought, like, this is not something I'm dealing with? And that's not an easy question to ask, because no one in their right mind likes to take the first, response as looking in the mirror. It's just not the natural way of doing things, but it's the most freeing. It really is the most freeing, because what it does is it allows us to let go of the other parts of the story that could drag you down for a long time. It's just a fact. If we're in the state of mind of the reactionary animal, then the nature of the animal is to get defensive, and then to get upset and to have resentment and say, why doesn't the person know, blah, blah, blah. If there's one thing that I hope that all of that which we've learned until today will give us clarity with 100% certainty, is that most times we don't understand what others are saying, almost all the time. And even when we think we understand, if you're not sure that you do or you don't, or you think you for sure understand, then just try it out yourself and repeat it to the person who it is that you're trying to understand. Say, so let me just make this clear. This is what it is that I'm understanding correctly. Mm-hmm. Don't be upset when the person says, no, that's not what I said. Not because it's not what you said. It's just not what they heard. And because we don't operate from what's said, but we operate from the filter of what we hear, because we're not yet masters over that truth, another truth. But at least we could, once we know about it, your expectations change. Right? So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam shehakol nihiyah b'dvaro.
Amen. Cheers.
So we're in a was it? Yeah, you got it? Oh, no. Oh, how did I keep on doing it? Because I didn't know how I just did that. Okay, here. Let me forward this to
I want to thank everyone for coming today.
I want to thank you for hosting.
I've always sort of imagined some things like this going on in the house, so it's really, when it's like last week.
I just sent you from a different number, from my other number, but okay.
I love it, totally. And thank you for Rabbi for doing this.
It's a pleasure. Really, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes.
In regard to the expectations. And as you know, I practice hypnotherapy, and it's ubiquitous now that men are having issues because of internet images. And they're having a very, very hard time with being upset and let down and disappointed with real life women, flesh and blood women, because they don't look anything like the images. So can you speak to expectation and how people are not able to love actual flawed humans because of all of the input from the expectations of what it should be, from media, from the internet, from images, especially in regards to men. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. That is perhaps, I think, the most important struggle today in our times. And here's the reason why. Because I'm going to give you the short end of it. But we talked about some of these principles Kabbalistically, which are also very practical. The highest point of a human being, the point that if you push that button, everything else follows. You know what it is? It's called pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure is the other side of the coin of desire. Sometimes it has different words to it, but it's a force But in the Hebrew, it has a word to it. The root of the word, eventually in its metamorphosis, becomes the root of the word for love. But it's not love. It's something that's beyond that. It's a experience that transcends conversation, that is so powerful that it has the ability to overcome all other systems within it. And I give you an example from the Alter Rebbe, when he talks about the meditations of the mikveh. He says an interesting metaphor. And the metaphor that he uses is imagine a person who has a friend who something happens, they have a faribel, they have a disagreement with them, and they don't talk to each other. And now one of the two friends is marrying off a only child, and it's the most joyous day of his life. He's marrying off his daughter. You know, he loves his daughter. He loves who she chose, and he's so happy. And that day, the guy who he hasn't spoken to in 10 years, but it used to be his close friend, but they had a faribel, walks in during the dance. How do you think his friend reacts to him? He reacts to him in most cases, if he's really in a state of joy, then he overlooks completely everything else that happened between them, because right now he's in a state of such deep pleasure that it overrides the rest of the system. And that's a good pleasure. That's a good pleasure. But also we have to be the guard of our pleasure, because there are other pleasures within us that could drive us away from all of that which we think we stand for. So God gives us guidelines in how we maintain our pleasure. Now here's the most interesting thing about that, if you think about it, because the way that a healthy union is meant to take place is that the highest form of that pleasure is meant to be something shared only between the people who are meant to be intimate with each other. And therefore, anytime a person looks at or experiences that form of pleasure, forget about right and wrong. I'm not saying to forget about right or wrong, but I'm saying that even if you put aside right and wrong, what you're doing is you're robbing your union of an element that's an important element of it. Now, number two, that pleasure also, when it comes to the union between a male and female, has levels to it. The lowest level is the animalistic level. It's the level that people fall in love with each other and are infatuated with each other when they're young and in their youth. And God makes it that way, because otherwise people wouldn't get married. So God makes a certain type of system of how that energy that is very present at the fifth lowest level of your nefesh, called nefesh. So that level is one level of union, and it's an independent level. And when someone's sitting in front of a place and looking at images, that which they're getting engaged is only that part of themselves. Is the animal part of themselves. Is a part of me, what's in it for me, how am I feeling now, how am I feeling now, how am I feeling now. Not about something that's about a union. But in a healthy marriage, in a healthy union, really what should be taking place is that once they are committed to each other and they love each other, and they're meant to grow with each other, where now their union is not only at the ruach level, which is emotional, which it should have been and was always meant to be, but not only at the neshama level, which is really at a very, meaning that they're both present in their consciousness at the same page of the fact that this is a time not about an individual and an individual's experience, but it's about a union, that it's at its highest. Then at the highest level, it shouldn't be about anything other than a union that is not something that can be described in words. But there's an exercise that takes place then, and I conclude with the following. This is the reason why in Kabbalah, and this is something that's practiced by observant Jews, that intimacy is only practiced in the total darkness. And one is not meant to see their spouse in a way that they wouldn't feel comfortable otherwise. Obviously, they're a couple, they're allowed to. But the holiness of union, even those who are not strict about this in the strictest of ways, you should just know that at the holy, it's at a certain point, and there are not meant to be any lights on it. And you look at the teachings of the Zohar, goes into this in great detail, and other books on Kabbalah that go in great detail to it. And the reason now, going backwards, why, is because the ultimate union between the male and female is one that's meant to be beyond the physicality of the two. The physicality is what brings it together. It brings that moment together, and in most cases, that's where it remains. It's just physicality. But in a higher union, one where the neshama and the neshama connects, then there's an experience that takes place that transcends that just the physical part of it.
So I have a question.
Does that make sense to you?
So you keep saying man and a woman. You keep saying a man and a woman. You keep saying between a man and a woman, but what if it's a couple that's gay, first of all? And would you marry someone who is with someone who's not Jewish?
So those are already going into halakha questions. I've told somebody several years ago, when it goes to halakha questions, there's so many rabbis that answer halakha. I follow halakha, but I refer all halakha questions to halakhic rabbis, like I'm going to do right now. So because it's a whole longer conversation that requires. But obviously, as you know, I'm a observant Torah Jew, and that comes with all that which comes with Torah observance. At the same time, I think I shared with you in the past. And I have married non-Jews with each other, right here on the beach, which was
but not a Jew and a non-Jew.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what is wonderful and awe-inspiring is when that was written about a union in the dark. This was before the internet was even invented by Local. And how amazing that if we use that wisdom now, it solves the problem.
100%.
Yes, that I can't tell you how many
and I'll tell you, there's one more aspect to this. It's very important for your male clients.
Yes.
It's the Talmud says there's one organ, for lack of a better word, in the male body that the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. And the more you discipline it, the less hungrier it is. So the reality is that most of these people don't realize that they're in a spiral that they are creating for themselves. There's much more to it. I will just tell you.
Right, the more you feed it,
the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets.
The more
You
you
know, when you take a male and you head him in the wrong direction, the more he feeds that by looking at things he shouldn't be looking, etc. It's not only a male, but just saying this is what the Talmud is talking about male. The more you feed it, the more a person wants more of that.
Yeah.
Then the person says, I can't live my life without it. Well, guess what? When people actually make 100% decision that this is something that only is going to live in the context of a holy space, and people successfully do it, and not only that, their marriages are happier. They're think of it like everything else in the world. Hashem made us human beings. Look at in the 6 days of creation. That's part of the creation of the world, of course. Hashem made us human beings that we are here to litakin, to correct. So everything is broken. Everything is broken. It's meant to be. And so is our being. So therefore, when we first get introduced to union between male and female, meaning that's the Torah's conversation. I'm saying when we get first introduced to that union, and even in the context of Torah, we get introduced to it at some level, at a certain level. And even the Torah says, I remember there's a book of advice that the Rebbe gave to people who wrote to him over the years about their questions and doubts of either dating, in the dating process. And clearly you have situations that in other environments and religious environments, it's very, he's here, he's back. We fed him last time, didn't we? He remembered. Or maybe he wanted to hear. We can open the window.
I saw him as soon as I walked in. If you remember, I walked in.
You're saying he hasn't been back since we were here?
He's flown by, but he's.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Anyway, so the point is that there are cases, and unfortunately, you see that there's television shows about it, where in the religious world, often it has been the case where people are told that you've got to get married to each other, arranged marriages. The Rebbe was very, very against that. The Rebbe was very, very much supportive of, if your heart is not there, then it's not the right person for you. You have to be, that's nefesh level. That's the lowest level of attraction. But the thing is, we're meant to grow. And therefore, like a teacher of mine once told me when we were dating, he said, when you date, you're supposed to be as selfish as possible.
Yeah.
Is this the right person for me? Am I the right person for that person? Is this going to be a good us idea? Okay. But once a person gets and makes that commitment to get married, then there's no longer, it's unconditional. So the selfish part is when it's in the dating process, that's what it's about. To figure out if this is who you want to commit your unconditional to. Because once you tie that knot, then it goes from that into unconditional, right? And in that context, a lot of things have to be deleted. That's the truth. And I'll go back to that, and then they'll go to the actual teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. But the reason why the Baal Shem Tov says, therefore, this is something that I believe that if we could just anchor ourselves with this one idea that we talked about many times, that really this is the essence of it all. Wherever your thoughts are, that's where you are, literally. Says the Kabbalah, that if a person is having relations with their spouse and they're thinking of somebody else, then its impact is on the child if there is one that is born from that union. And even if there isn't one that's born from the union, its impact is on the environment of the people. Because the thought process of the two that are involved is a essential aspect of the union. So now think to yourself, while people are looking at pictures, what do you think they're thinking about? It's really sad.
In practicality, they're miserable.
Yeah,
So they're
unfortunately.
the opposite of pleasure.
But this is because they set themselves up for something that is out of the context of what they're looking for in life, at least if that is what they're looking for in life. If they're looking for a stronger union with their spouse, they have to completely erase the way they're doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
I'm just telling you, it's just the reality. Okay.
Sorry, I just want to ask you one more thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Manage it. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets, but the more you discipline it, just finish that
The less
sentence.
hungrier it is.
Thank you.
So when people really are they make it absolute, like this is not something I ever want to be doing or entertaining, then at first it may be difficult, but later on it becomes not a struggle.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? Because they're not fighting with it anymore. Okay, so we're now in the time of the Torah in the time of the year that we are about to celebrate the new year of the esoteric teachings of the Torah. And I want to tell you that I've been reading some history about the early years of, and listening, actually, even listening. There's a place I'm happy to tell you online. I have a friend of mine that goes through different biographies of different Rebbes. And I'm listening to the biography of the transition or when the previous Rebbe came to America, and our Rebbe, which was a period of 10 years, and the absolute unbelievable effort exerted by our Rebbe to publicize and print as many of the teachings of his father-in-law during that time that he could. Why? Because that's the mission of Hasidism, is to take the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and to spread them everywhere. So naturally, when we get to the time of the year that we're getting close to that new year, it takes on a new level, because that's how, one everything we learn from Kabbalah is that there's no such a thing as it's an anniversary is never supposed to be just, it's another time. We're on an upward spiral. So every time there's a yahrzeit, there's an anniversary, there's a birthday, there's something going on. It's not simply just a re-experiencing of whatever that event is, but there's a heightened level to it all. So naturally, because we're getting so close to the teaching, to the time of the new year, it's also it's important to get present to the possibilities that then become available in learning when we just make time to learn the esoteric teachings of the Torah. And last but not least, is that I read something, and I don't know why a bigger deal is not made of it. Okay, but I was surprised. I actually asked a couple of my friends, and I was surprised that they actually never heard of it before. But having said that, the fifth Chabad Rebbe told a quote secret to the sixth Chabad Rebbe, who wrote it down, and it was published by our Rebbe back in the 1940s, that there are three periods of time. There are three periods of time that each represent a heightened possibility to connect with what that idea is. In the past, I told you that there's the 3 stages of intelligence: Chachma, Bina, Das, which is the 3 stages of consciousness. So in the time that we're in just the next few days, like the next 10 days, we have an ability to connect with something called Das. Remember what Das is? Chachma means conception. Bina means evaluation. And Da'as means?
Action.
Correct. It actually means literally to know.
To manifest.
Yeah, but to manifest that what you know into behavior, to action.
Yes. Yes.
Which is, by the way, the biggest struggle that we have. Our internal struggles is because of the lack of das. If we had clarity, then we wouldn't struggle, So that's part of the exile that we're in.
Okay, go back to that.
Yeah.
If I have to deconstruct this. If we had clarity, we'd have das.
I mean, if we had das, we'd have clarity.
If we had.
That is clarity. Das is clarity. There are things that.
I got a question about
Go
this.
ahead, yeah.
Okay, easiest example, smoking.
Yeah.
There's not a smoker who doesn't know it causes cancer.
Correct.
There's clarity. How come
No,
there's
that's not clarity. You know how you know clarity?
Because it does.
Yeah, when it's applied knowledge.
Got it.
So it means that up until then it may be clear in an intellectual level,
a bina.
but at a bina chachma bina level. But in order for it to be, I went through that experience. I shared that with you in the past. I went through that experience. I prayed for it, but I went through that experience many years ago. I davened because I knew that it was horrible for me, but I just couldn't get myself off of it. And then I davened for it. I really prayed for it. It was the most effective thing. But at the end of the day, that's what gave me the das.
The das.
The das.
Is the action.
The das means I behave in accordance to that clarity that I have.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
So the next 10 days.
So now the next pretty much 10 days
starting Wednesday?
it already started. It started like 20 days ago. It's like a period of a month. So it's a whole period. But the idea is that if we took the time to think about those places where we know we're lacking das. You get it?
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to make public confessions over here, but some of them are obvious. Okay, I know where I'm lacking das, and I don't know it all the time, but I know certain areas. And this is a time where we take the time to really focus on how to implement the das within us. But I want to tell you something. The Mishli, Proverbs says that das has many, many, many rooms.
Many rooms.
It's a brilliant idea. Das has many, many, many rooms. Think about it. When you make an absolute decision as to why you're going to do whatever going forward, absolutely, it's because it's not just one thing that lended itself to that truth. It has many rooms. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can say, because my children, because of this, because my job. You just go 100 different things. That's the impetus of das. So that's why if someone is lacking das, what you want to be doing for them is giving them more rooms. Not the same rooms that they already have from their mother and their brother and their sister and everybody else is telling them why they should stop. Opening up a new thing. I want to think of it in a different way. That's a new room. Think of it as if, whatever, there's so many, like I'll give you one of them that I'm not saying this one, but this one for me was a help from my brother Chaim, God bless him. He said to me, Levi, he says, other people get sick, God forbid, they're dying. So I'm just curious, what are you going to tell your kids? Why didn't you stop smoking now that, that doesn't work for you? Like, why? And I couldn't take that out of my head.
That's a room.
That's a room. It's not just a room. It's with a machine that goes 24 hours. And every time you pull out a cigarette, it gets loud. You know what I'm saying? So the point is that the das has many rooms. So in order for us to, the reason why the esoteric part of the Torah is so important is because it provides those many rooms for us. It gives us a new way in how to experience whatever it is that's holding us back. That's because we have the wrong context that we're addressing it. Obviously, otherwise we'd have a different response to it, right? Okay, so now this is a very deep teaching. I'm going to start it today. Okay, we're not going to finish it today. I'm going to start it today, and it's what's that? Yeah. Yes.
What?
Well, I'm gonna also conclude with a shorter teaching, but this is a teaching that I wanted to kind of get deeper into. But I'm just gonna start it today, and at least we got started with it. Okay. So it's also going back to the expectations. This really addresses it. The Mishnah in Ethics of Our Fathers has different places that it addresses it, and one of the places it says that who's considered a wealthy person, and it gives us different things, what makes a person wealthy, and one of them says someone who recognizes his place and he's happy with it. Someone that's joyous with his lot. Someone that's recognizes his place. Now that's a very amazing thing, because too often that which brings people down is because they have expectations of themselves that are not fair. And because they don't recognize their place and they're never achieving that expectation, then they're poor in their thoughts, they're poor in their presence. Who's considered wealthy? Somebody that understands. This is what I'm good at. This is where I'm going to, I focus my example. It's one example. Okay. Also, he says another thing that these a person acquires a Torah, someone that makes a fence around their words. Now that's simple, right? A fence around the words, meaning not everything that just came to the mind must be. And there's that, unfortunately, when people are not on any spiritual path, then too often it's shocking, the words that come out of people's mouths, especially when they're like doing a business deal, whatever it is. It's like almost sickening. I heard once one guy said to a rabbi, no less, "Come on, rabbi, vomit it out." It was so low. It was so.
So that's a visualization for you.
I know. That's why I wanted to give you something that. So he says the question is, how does it work that the way that a person acquires the Torah is by knowing what their level is, where they belong. And also, how does that jive? So there's two different places. One place it says, who's considered wealthy? Someone who's happy with their lot. And it says, and then over here it says, how does one acquire the Torah? How does one acquire the Torah? Also, someone who's happy with their lot. To acquire the Torah. And what does that mean simply? It simply means that when people really want to connect to the Torah, there are different levels of connection to the Torah. There's already a natural level you have as a Jew. You stood by Mount Sinai, your soul did. So you have a natural connection between yourself and Hashem. That's there. But then there's a way in which that's something you have to work for. It's a relationship. And just like with a relationship, there's a way in which you acquire that relationship, and that becomes something that's, I don't know, the right word may not be acquired in English, but whatever it may be, there's also that with the Torah. So one of the ways to acquire Torah, if someone says, I'm a Torah, he's a Torah scholar, but he's somebody who's never happy with his, or he's always talking in a way that's, you got to question, did they really acquire Torah? They may know some Torah, but did they acquire Torah? If through their words, they didn't yet, I'm not addressing, I'm not here to judge others. So just something to point at ourselves. Anyway, so the Baal Shem Tov goes into this, but again, in order to get to this, we're going to go to a deeper level. Okay, I'm just to start at the beginning of it. And but you got the question? If you have a question,
What if I challenge this and say this is very, very dangerous?
Okay.
And let me tell you why.
Yeah. First of all, tell me what's dangerous.
What's dangerous is
what I said. What part of that I said is dangerous?
That the way one is rich and the way that one acquires Torah is being content and understanding and embraces one's lot, because it's dangerous.
Okay.
Very hard.
Okay.
Because it protects the patriarchy. And when we take this, I see someone disagrees.
Because there's nobody said. There's no one ever said.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, but tell me how you understood what I said.
How I understood what you said is that, again, taking a look from a psychology point of view, it was taught that people had to really know who they were and what their role was in society. And when you challenged what your role was in society, it upset and unbalanced society. It made it dangerous. It made you dangerous. And in many cases, it was equivocated with mental illness, like women who wanted to be visible and to achieve their own recognition. There was something wrong because you should get your satisfaction from your spouse, your husband, and your sons, and that to strive to come out of where you belong in society is a sign of being a malcontent.
Yeah. So that I would
You see what I'm
yeah, but
saying?
that's not what was said.
I like you, and now I'm switched
No,
sides.
but that's not what was said. What was said is much less complicated than that. It's very
Okay.
simple. If you think about it, you know, in order for someone to acquire the knowledge of Torah, one has to have certain principles. That's what he's telling, certain principles to properly acquire that. That's what, in regards to that. What does that mean? A principle is that if a person, let's say, I hear this all the time. You hear a person, I have people that come to shul for 25 plus years that will argue with me about something that is, oh, that's not the truth. This is how you're supposed to do it. You're actually supposed to do it.
What?
They'll argue with me about some of the things sometimes that we'll do in the shul.
Like
Simple things, whatever.
standing up,
Nothing
sitting
important.
down.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing too important, right?
Okay.
But sometimes they're important enough that they're Jewish law. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that sounds like, are you serious? I went to yeshiva.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? Like you want to argue with me, fine. I have no problem you argue with me. I don't answer this way because I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but it's like, know your place. What do you know? How much of Jewish law do you know? You never even opened up the book of Jewish law.
Okay.
If you haven't opened up the book of Jewish law, then know your place.
Okay, got it.
And this is, and by the way, this is not just true this is true about Torah, but it's a good principle in life. And you can use it in your area of practice. There are people that are people that are seasoned. They've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
And then you imagine someone who they learned the lesson. No, that's not how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like know your place.
So
That's what it means. Know your place. Understand where you are. Everyone, know where you are because it'll help you be humble and be open to be a student where you're not yet aware of areas because you're young at it and you don't know what other people know. So that's what it means. Know your place. Is understand people know more than you. You can learn from them. Understand just everybody. This is a humble principle,
But
good for everybody.
We never use it to say that women need to study
No,
this
never.
and cannot study that.
No. Not only that.
Okay.
Not only that, especially just so you know, in our generation, and you can look at it in the Brown Chumash, that I'm happy to say that we got to be a part of that. And somebody from the congregation caught up 2 or 3 weeks ago, a couple, maybe more than that, and said, I want to read something out loud. And over there, the Rebbe's talked about the importance of, in our generation, that now everyone's able to study Torah, should not be limited in everything that's everywhere. So it never meant that anyway. It never did.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know that it really, if you think about it, it's really, I want to put it into other words, I think to make it easier. Even with the most holiest, beautiful neshama we all have, we have a lower self. And the thing we got working against us is the lower self gets to have the first operating, the ones on the operating on the controls.
Ego.
So therefore, the Torah, when the Mishnah tells us certain things, he's telling us how you control your ego.
Got it.
You get what I'm saying? So be happy with your lot. It's a good way to control your ego. So people look at other people and say, "Oh, I wish I had my life like that." That means you're like, how could you be? Of course, you're poor. You know what I'm saying? How is it? It's funny. These principles today are being embraced in the most secular environments. I see videos that pop up at people who are completely secular. Like the biggest blessing, if you want to know what's rich, if your kids are happy to come home. If they're not happy to come home, I don't care how much money you have. You're not rich. That's another way of saying some of this. You get what I'm saying? So but I'm happy you brought that up because so much of these words can easily be misunderstood to mean exactly that. So I'm happy you brought that up.
Quite a lot of Jewish people going into self-help books and things, and
it's all here.
Yeah.
It's all here.
But you know, and I've mentioned this before, there is unfortunately, there is a stigma when you do a teach. For some people, when you do a teaching, you put the religion umbrella on it. You could take the same things, put it under self-help book, pen it. People love it. It's unfortunately what's happened throughout the years, and this very powerful knowledge getting into the hands of the wrong people. So when you say you hear it in secular society, you've got a lot of people very well studied in religion that are writing these books.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that in there, and it's good. I love the Jews, and it's good because it's getting out there, it's trickling down, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like
And
it's not
really,
our secret, you know what I mean?
and really, what if you think this is like
And also movies doing the same thing.
Yeah.
one of the Das rooms, which is a good room to have, everybody should have. Okay. By the way, there are certain shared rooms in Das. Okay. Here's a shared room in Das. We have a unique possibility that no other creature has. We have an ability to be somewhat angelic that no other creature has. And we don't get to experience the joy of it until we do it. You can't talk about it. It's not something that you get to experience in a movie. You may get the chills by watching somebody else do it and experiencing it. But if you're going to really experience the truest part of who we are, then we got to engage the truest part of who we are. You know,
People, you know, start.
it's a
doing
gift. It's like, you
gifts
know,
and acts of charity and things like that. That it's and they, you know, maybe not been brought up like that and start doing it. They go and they get the euphoria.
yeah. Yeah.
Through service.
And that being of service, and that makes you a rich person.
Yeah.
People, there's very knowledgeable people that read the Torah and study all kinds of religions and all this, but if you're not doing it.
So that's what the Talmud says, that Ein Ashir Ela B'das. There is no wealthy person other than in Da'as. Wealth is in Da'as. My great grandfather, Zusha of Anatoly.
Sounds important.
He was a very how do I say it? He didn't have money. He was broke.
Yeah.
He was wealthy and broke. Okay. Totally. And in fact, it was a time that someone came to the first Chabad Rebbe, who was at some point a colleague of Reb Zusha, till he became the Rebbe, and then Reb Zusha became his follower. And the person came to the Alter Rebbe and said, I'm having a miserable life. And he says how difficult it is to make a living and to feed his family, etc. So the Alter Rebbe said, go see Reb Zusha. And he right away went to go see Reb Zusha. And when he got there, it was raining.
To go see who?
Reb Zusha from Anapala, his friend, his colleague.
Oh, his friend.
So he told him to go. He had to go to somewhere in the
It's your
forest.
great
Yeah.
grandfather. Okay.
And he gets there, it's raining. He knocks on the door at 2 o'clock in the morning. He sees the candles burning. Zusha opens up. Please come in. He says, it's literally leaking in several places, right? He has to sit down. He gives him a tea. And he starts to talk to him. He says, oh, you're coming from Zalman. Tell me, how's he doing? Anything? How can I help you? So he said that the Rebbe sent me to you to see how I can be joyous even under the difficult circumstances, how under being so poor. And Reb Zusha began to cry. He said, I don't know why he would send you to me. I'm so rich.
So going back to the point, Lisa, then that you were making, Rabbi, about a lot in life. To me, the way you were interpreting it, if I'm accurate, if I'm correct, is our positions in the physical world. And what I'm understanding from this is really what's our position in the spiritual world. What's the position in our thinking?
But again, I think it's also correct. Yeah, or also characteristically. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're around people who are studying and growing, and someone else says, maybe you should have said it differently. Don't argue. And learn.
Listen.
So if you recognize your place in life and you know where you're coming from, where you're going,
But
what's his name says? Billy, what was the song? You got to know where to hold. Gotta know, right? Where did they got it from Torah? Gotta know where to hold them, where to fold
This is
them.
pretty job.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
Yeah.
that.
Really Nelson.
Yeah.
Not gambling.
You know,
Okay, so-
what you
yeah.
just said, Rabbi, sorry, just it reminds me of something that I was told that the Rebbe said. And when you know, the Rebbe used to give out the dollars and you know, stand all day and do what he used to do. And somebody said, do you think that you never get tired? And he says, how can you get tired counting pearls?
Yes. Diamonds.
Oh,
Diamonds.
Diamonds.
Oh, I was told pearls. Okay, diamonds.
that's right.
And by the way, because I'm reminded now, there's actually one of the teachings of the Rebbe's daily teaching called Hayom Yom. The Rebbe speaks about in a certain areas, the material and the spiritual pursuit are opposite in their nature. In the physical pursuit, to be content with what you, I'm sorry, in the spiritual pursuit, to be content with what you have is the worst, because then you don't grow.
Yes.
But materially, to be content with what you have is the biggest blessing.
Yes.
You see, so there's a that thing, and again, that what I told you before about feeding that energy and getting hungrier, it's true about all aspects of it. So when a person, you see people that are accumulating money to get more things, and then they, I don't know, maybe I don't need all those things. I don't want all those things, you know. So it makes you feel good till it doesn't. Okay, I'm going to just do one more paragraph from this particular because I want to at least start with this. Okay, I've been looking forward to sharing this with you. Okay, but it's a little deep. On Shabbos, there are 2 times on Shabbat when we pray, which you're always welcome to join us, that we say the Kedusha. We say the proclamation of what is called Kadosh. They're words that we get from the prophets, and they're ways in which, as a group, we utter together, making a proclamation of our acknowledgement and our awareness of what our real place is. Okay? That's a simple, and now the angels say the same thing. Now here's what how do we know that? We know that from the prophecies of Ezekiel and others that told us what goes on there. Okay, so one of the things that we know is that the angels at a certain level, and remember there's different levels. We're at Asiya level. Asiya level is everything that you know is living in the Asiya level. Even your most spiritual ideas, it's all Asiya level. Then there's the next level, Yetzirah. Then there's Bria. There's different levels. They're not physical. They are of spiritual nature, of course. And there are angels at higher levels. And angels at the higher levels are so wired in that they have a regimen as part of what they do every day is to sing praise to God. By the way, they're not allowed to praise God whenever they want. Otherwise, they would never stop.
Not allowed.
Otherwise, they would never stop because of which they see as godliness. They would want to do nothing differently. So they only have on certain times they're allowed to praise God. And we know what they say. You know what they say? They say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Kadosh means holy. But you know what the word holy means? By the way, if you go to Rome, there's the Arch of Rome. It says over there, this is one of the things they stole from us. You have Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Mm-hmm. What does holy, holy, holy mean? The word holy literally means, they adopted it as something that is as if whatever. Anyway, so the holy literally means higher than. So we can't acknowledge what God is because we don't know what God is. So we say God, Kadosh from time, Kadosh from space, Kadosh from energy. Now you got it all covered. Get it? You're acknowledging that which we call time, space, and energy is only a production of the maker, and it doesn't tell us anything about the maker. It's only a production. It's happening all the time until it stops. But it doesn't tell us anything about the maker. Whatever we know about the maker is only through that which we know from the Torah. Otherwise, we are nothing in compared to that which is making us. And that we acknowledge in the words Kadosh. So now the angels say, in the higher level, Aye Mekom Kavoda. If you come to Chabad Malibu, this is in a unique place where this happens. There's one fellow in the back, God you bless him with a long life. He wears white clothing. He's studied Kabbalah at different times in his life, continues to. And he's a good friend of mine also. And you'll hear him scream that when we say, he goes, Aye! I never asked him why. But the angels, that's what they ask. Where is the presence of God? That's in their praise. They can feel it. They can relate to the fact that something that we don't, even as we get spiritual, we're in a tzimtzum, we're in a reality that doesn't allow us to see what they see. But because they see what they see the vibrant energy that's constant within them, and they respond to it. At the same time, they don't see the energy. They just see the fact that it's producing what it's producing, but they don't see the source of it. So imagine you see something electric, but you don't see any outlets, and you want to know, where's it coming from? That's what they're asking. The way they're praising Hashem, the question they asked one to the other, this the prophet heard, where is the place of his great glory? And then the other angels say, his glory fills the entirety of the universe.
Okay.
So that's part of the praise. And we say that during prayer, the second prayer on Shabbat. And the question is, once we say, beforehand, we say in the prayer, we first say that his honor fills everywhere. So then why do we go on afterwards and say, where's his honor? We just said it, it's everywhere. So why are we asking the question again? We already know it, right? Okay.
Why?
Okay. Okay, so this is the beginning of what we're gonna get to, God willing, next week. Okay, so we'll answer that. But just because once I get into it, it's gonna get. I'll give you the first paragraph. The first paragraph. Right? It says it's brought down one of the great books of Kabbalah. Probably never heard of it before, called the Book of Pliya, the Book of Wonders. It talks about in the verse of the Torah it says, "And Elohim saw that it was good," and the Medrash tells us, I think it was the Medrash, he says that they asked the Rebbe, what does it mean that he saw it was good? So he said, when it says that God made the first day, he saw the light and he saw it was good. What does it mean he saw it was good? So he answered them, Elijah, the prophet, said with his mouth, that what does it mean when they cleaned out the candles daily in the holy temple? It means when they kindled it. Not cleaned it, when they kindle it. And what does that mean? What he saw was good is it's as if one is taking from one candle and lighting another candle. And he said, and he saw it was good. And of course the question is, but the Creator takes it from absolute state of nothingness. So where was the candle coming from? What did Elijah mean by that? What did Elijah mean? It's like the response that you see. So he says that when a person at nighttime, when the candle goes out, before the candle goes out and he lights another candle, he's exchanging one candle for the next. That would be taking something from something. But the Creator, of course, is emitting from that which is the beginning a light which is from a state of beyond anything, which is a absolute state of nothingness. So we can't. So what does Elijah mean? That you're like lighting from one candle to the next candle. Okay, we're gonna leave it at the question. Okay. To be continued. And now I'm sorry. I meant to spend more time on it, but it's good. We'll end with a question for that one. Okay. And God willing, we'll continue that. I'm just gonna have to get onto this. I'm listening, just getting onto the Zoom while I'm listening to this. Tell me, yes.
Elohim.
Yes.
That is plural.
Correct. Good question. So when God created the world, God created the world through a series of different names, and the name that God created the world with is a name that allows for the idea. Is a way that allows for the idea of plurality to be something that we experience. So it is never plural, but the fact that it gives off a view, a way as if it is plural, is because that was an echo. Is because whoa! That was pretty deep. Okay.
That was plural.
He was plural.
He is not plural.
No, it's.
But he created an echo type of system,
Yes.
like what's just happening here.